All right, welcome to another episode of She Will Not Fall. And of course, for season 2, we are talking liberation. And I'm really excited for my guest today, Pastor Jenny. I discovered her on TikTok and really loved her videos, her fashion. She's so fly. And so I just really wanted to invite her onto the podcast to talk about liberation this season. So welcome to the podcast, Pastor Jenny.
Oh, thank you so much. It is such a joy to be here with you. The world of TikTok, it connects us.
I know, it really does. I have found some of the most amazing people on TikTok. So that have been really helpful with deconstruction and decolonizing for me. So it's been really, really amazing. So for us to kind of get to have a little peek into your personality, we're going to start with this opening question. And as I've said to each guest, I know it's hard, but I think it does give us some insight to who you are and, just your personality. So if you had to describe yourself as a song title or a book title, what would it be and why?
Yeah, so I just decided to go with this one because it's been in my head for the last couple days. And so I'm just gonna share with you that song. It's Won't Back Down. It's originally Tom Petty. However, it is redone by Dawn Lands, and she does kind of like a very broken down acoustic version of it, but it doesn't feel like weepy or it just feels very sure. And I just love the idea of like, you can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I'm not backing down. And
I love it.
I'm just like, one of my favorite hymns.
Yes, I love that. I love that because I think that just speaks to resilience and strength, right? Like that's amazing. I like that. So of course this season we're talking about liberation, and we know that there are communal definitions, right, for liberation for different groups of folks, right? So everybody can have a different definition of what liberation means for them. But I always like to start with the person. So what does liberation mean to you personally? Like, how do you define it? What do you need in order to feel liberated in a space?
Yeah. I think liberation has a sense of like being known, being seen. And Joe Davis was like, we all know the golden rule, but have you heard the platinum rule? The platinum rule is treat people the way that they want to be treated. And I just think how that can connect to liberation, because it forces you to like pause and notice them, see them. And I think that's how liberation is too. It's like, it's going to look a little different for all of us, but like, ask us and talk to us about what it looks like, like conversations like this, because liberation does look different. And for me, it is this ability in my own body, in my own spirit, in my own environment to be fully myself unapologetically. And that means I'm going to like mess up sometimes. That means I'm going to get it wrong. That means I'm going to have to say I'm sorry. But being able to decide like what my brave voice looks like is like the first step of liberation, right? Yeah. And it takes a lot to get there,
Yeah.
But
yeah. I like that. I like the platinum rule. I have never heard that, but that just blessed me so much.
Joe Davis, I swear.
Like, a big piece of liberation is listening to folks. It's just, it sounds simple, but that is so true. And I think most folks don't listen, actively listen.
Yes.
Most people listen to respond, defend, all of those things, but to actively listen to people telling you, this is what I need, or, these are my boundaries, or whatever it is. Yeah, that's really good to me. I love that. Yeah.
It keeps blessing me too. And I feel like that's the kind of thing. I just love how you put that, like when you're listening to someone, like you're hearing them. And I just think of a lot of the different conversations I have with people who feel really bound up. And a lot of times it's like, I hear you, but like, that can't be true. Or like, I hear the words that you're saying, but like my feelings don't feel that way. So, or I don't know how to feel that way, or I've never felt that way. Therefore, I can't go with you on that, or I can't even validate your experience, or how you show up as a human in that. And so it's been really interesting to be like, okay, if this is what I want to see more of in the world, I have to do this. And it catches me up, where I'm like, ooh, Sung, you gotta step back.
I think for me, I definitely am challenged with being more of an active listener. I feel like I do listen to people and I really want to hear where they're coming from and treat them the way that they're telling me they want to be treated. But then I think there are times where your privilege gets in the way. And, and so you're like, yeah, I hear that, but, and it's like, well, no. So I think that is something that we all can work on, is that active listening piece. And on the flip side of that coin, being able to speak up for what we need, right? Like for liberation and for others to treat us the way we are desiring to be treated and want to be treated. So I love that. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do and how liberation shows up in that. One thing that I will say, like on TikTok, there is this beautiful rebelliousness that you have with your fashion sense, because people are like, oh, a pastor can't dress like that. A woman can't be a pastor, right? And so you have embraced that and like revved against it, and to me in the most glorious way. So just kind of talk to us about the work that you're doing and how liberation shows up in that space.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like, well, first of all, I worked at a large congregation and I love them. I'll always love them. They're actually the ones that taught me how to find my brave voice and what hills I was willing to die on. And I mean, that's just amazing work. And I think that also taught me where I didn't feel liberated, or where I didn't feel like I was able to liberate others in the call that I felt like God gave me. And so some of the hills that I learned to die on were so near and dear to me that it made me more rebellious or more apt to speak out about it, because it's like, it feels like we're not tending to this, or I feel like we're all tending to different places in the vineyard. And that place in the vineyard has lots of people tending to it, that like you get to have that opinion and you get to be comfortable in it. But then there's this other side of the vineyard that's like, hey, we exist too. We matter. We want liberation too. Our comfort is not less valuable or important. In fact, we've just gotten so used to being uncomfortable that people just gone and left the vineyard. But and so I feel like my call in the vineyard is to be with the people that are like, hey, what about me? And for me to be like, tell me about you, because I believe there is this God that is absolutely behind you, in love with you, excited about you. And the more people that we can listen to and like be in community, like actual real beloved community with, we get to see people come alive. And when people come alive, I mean, it is scripture. God, the full glory of God is human fully alive. And I believe that, like, I mean, that's one of the hills I will die on. And so for me, when I lived in New York, I loved, I could wear anything I wanted and it didn't matter. Like everybody's just doing their thing, mind their business, just wearing what they love or what they feel like wearing. And then when I moved back to the Midwest, it was like, oh, she just wants attention, or she just, and it's like, no, I just really like bright things. I like pretty things. I like fabric and texture. And it took me a while, but I finally was like, I need to wear and be exactly how God made me, so that other people can be free as well. And I know it sounds something silly as clothes, but women are defined by their clothes all the time. And I just feel like, you know what, I'm going to push back on that real hard, because we're more than just what we wear, but that is a part of like our creativity, our ways that we create, and we embody this amazing Holy Spirit that isn't just beige, is vibrant.
Yeah, so you said so many good things there, but I definitely agree with that. I think as women, our bodies are policed a lot more. And so there's such an oppression so that comes with that. And though we're being our whole authentic selves and expressing our personalities through our clothes and how we see things, or how we wear makeup, or how we wear our hair, or the nail color that we pick, whatever it is. And it feels like there's always something or someone or some system or some institution that is like, that's too much. You're doing too much. You need to sit down. You need to be quiet. And I love that you were like, no, I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to live freely and wholly, because this is an example to other folks that you can be free and you can live in your whole authentic being and self.
And we need that. We need you to be that way, right?
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh. I think that scripture that's just been slaying me lately. Oh my gosh, I'm so old. I just said slay. But anyways, the scripture that's just captured me lately is about David dancing in the streets naked. And I just think it just takes one person to be free. Like, it just takes one person. And I think I love it because I don't feel alone in that. I think there's lots of people saying, like, really be you, like that is the gift, that is the wonder, that is the beauty. And what I get a lot is like, I didn't know I had permission to do that or be that. I didn't know, or I thought, oh, I'll get in trouble, or, oh, this will put a negative thing on my head. And I'm like, we're always going to have that. Like, there's always going to be a reason why we're not right, or we're not good, or we don't fit the mold. And if we embrace that, like, that is liberation. It's like, I never fit that mold. I was never supposed to be in that, square hole. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I feel like that is the key reason why I push as hard as I do against assimilation, because I think it strips people of being who God really created them to be. And there's such beauty and diversity in our gifts, in our life experiences, and just in who we are, that people can miss out on when we're all trying to make these little cookie cutter people. Like, everybody looks exactly the same, dresses the same, talks the same, walks the same. Like, it's like, no, God made diversity in so many different ways. Like, can we just embrace that? Because that is a key part of liberation to me, is I think we miss the beauty of liberation when we're all trying to be exactly the same. And that doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But you said something earlier that I kind of want to go back to. So you mentioned kind of the vineyard, and there is a section of the vineyard that's like, hey, we exist over here. And I really started thinking about marginalized folks and the ways in which marginalized folks are pushed to the margins. But I think there is a liberation in, especially theologically, pushing marginalized folks to the center. And just kind of wanted to get your thoughts around that. Maybe some ways that you're trying to push marginalized folks to the center, and just kind of get your thoughts around that.
Absolutely. So it's funny because this is something I'm very passionate about, in the way that I'm writing a book right now. It's called Thrown Away. And it's a little bit about my story, because I was an orphan. And so I was abandoned and, went into foster care and orphanages, and then adopted out eventually to America. And so I just always had this narrative of being like abandoned, forgotten, left behind. And it was, I mean, the reason why I love God so much is because I felt like God was like, oh no, baby, your story is about deliverance. Like, I delivered you from those places that were not good for you, and I continue to deliver you, and I'm going to keep on delivering you. And so I feel like for me, that whole story is what is and how God calls. God always calls the people you least expect. And I think right now, the movement that's happening in the church and with the church is that God is calling the people that have been marginalized and pushed out to be the leaders of this next reformation. And like, I don't think we need to push anybody. I think we actually just need to get out of the way. And so that's more of the work that I'm doing, is like, I don't know the answers, but I like, this person's really amazing and I'm learning so much from them, or this organization that might not even be Christian, but wow, how they like love and support and give. And like, I have so much to learn from them. And even like the church that's happening on TikTok, it's like, to me, God is already calling the ones you least expect, empowering them to lead. Okay, I'm gonna say one more thing before but I think about how marginalized folks have been used to trauma. We've lived it, we've learned, we've endured it. We've had to learn that it's not the hate that keeps you fueled, it's the compassion, the rest, the laugh, the joy that keeps you motivated and doing the right thing. And when the pandemic happened, I think there was a lot of people for the first time that was like, how do you deal with trauma? How do you deal with things just continually happening to you? And it was the marginalized people that stepped up and they're like, oh baby, let me show you. Like, I think of the NAP ministry, I think of Black liturgists, like Nicole, I can't think of her name right now. Oh, I follow her on Patreon. But yeah, Black liturgies, these are the voices that God has called, and we just have to move out of the way.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, because I think sometimes we think helping other folks get liberated is
Ooh.
doing something, but sometimes it's us moving out of the way.
Yes, I think it's usually that, in the way that we're so good at morphing things into being about us, that even when we're like, I want to liberate people, or I want to push the people that are on the margins into the center, it still centers us. And like what we're doing, as like, and we all have intersections of holding power. But I just feel like the more we can get out of our heads about it's up to us to save them, and be more like, let's get out of the way because we need to learn from them. We have so much learning to do. It's just a totally different posture of being together.
Yeah, that's so good to me. As you think about the future, of what you want to do, and just kind of think about and projecting and manifesting what you want to do, how do you see liberation showing up in that, in future work?
I see future work being decentralized leadership for sure. Um, I think the way that we can move when we decide that we don't have to hold all the power, but we can trust one another to hold it with compassion, and practice that together. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen overnight. And I do think the more that we learn about decentralizing power and leaning into one another and doing community care for real, that is where there's going to be a huge shift, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of buddies right now that know it or feel it and just don't have enough imagination to be able to see how that could work. But it's already working in places. And I think it's just another example of like, we need to get rid of the hierarchy. We need to have decentralized leadership. We need to listen to all the generations, because there is wisdom in each of them. We've just gotten so good at hating each other. And I think that there's just this, when I think about the vineyard again, there's so much judgment about where other folks are tending to the vineyard. And I want to be like, thank God you're in that part of the vineyard, because I couldn't wear that much beige, or, thank God that you're tending to these people in this part of the vineyard because they know God through you. And I could never tend to that part of the vineyard. My heart just couldn't do it. Right. So I'm going to tend to my part in the vineyard. Thank God that you're tending to yours, and just let you disagree with me. Right? Like, let's say I am wearing something and somebody's like, I'm offended. And I'm like, I hear you. That sounds like a you problem. Like,
Right.
yes, like I don't need to carry that for you. That's a you thing.
Yes.
You can be offended. That's fine. What I'm gonna do to fix how that feels for you, that feels like that's your work to do,
Mm.
And it works in vice versa, you know, things that offend me. It's like, it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really love the idea of toiling your own garden. Like, you know, stay in that section, and not casting judgment on the other or condemning. It's just like, that's not, it's just like we say pretty much like in marketing, everybody's not your audience. Like, so,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, and so everybody will not be your call. Like, everybody will not receive it. Everybody's not going to be a fan. I mean, it just is what it is on that. But the biggest thing that I always tell people is you got to keep going, because the people that are your responsibility, that God has put in your path, they need you. So you can't quit because you can't be, you know, on these big grandiose stages or whatever it is.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I really love that. It's like, mind your section of the vineyard. I think that that's
Yes.
beautiful. That's
Well,
so beautiful.
it's been so helpful in my family, because I don't know about you all, but my family and I don't get along on everything. And when I was, you know, putting out content, it got really heated, you know, because a lot of my family took some of the things that I said personally, or felt like it was at them, and it took us time to realize, like, you're my family and I love you. And God has called me to a very specific space and a very specific people. So all of my content is going to be geared to them. And because there's other people that have the other buddies, like, this is all I know. And so this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it as faithfully as I can. And yeah, I'm going to mess it up sometimes, because sometimes I get really mad. And then, like, God has to bring me in a little more, you know? And so it's just like, you can still love me and not understand me. That has just been a huge quote for me lately, because it's like, ooh, who else do I need to do that for?
Yeah.
But we all feel that, right? Like, you don't have to understand why I wear this jumper or why I wear this color. You don't have to understand that, but we can just still look at each other as family, or we can still see each other as, you know, oh, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. But I mean, it just goes back to what we were saying. Like, if we just move out of the way and let people be who they are,
Yeah.
and like, and just be in community with them. Like,
Yeah.
just is, yeah. So do you have any final thoughts around liberation that you want to leave with the folks that are listening? And then also let us know what you're working on, how people can support you and follow you.
Oh, sure. I don't know. I think the thing that just came to me as you were talking about that was, I don't know who's listening, and I believe that there's a place inside of you that is hungry for liberation, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in job, whether it's in purpose or spirit or body. And I just pray that whatever piece of that in you is hungry for liberation, I pray that it gets the waters of living. It's the waters of the living waters, like, they're just overflowing, that whatever part of you is hungry for liberation will not only know liberation, but speak it, preach it, and share it, because we need you. We need your
Mm,
voice. And so
yeah.
that's the only thing I thought to share.
Oh, no, that was beautiful. I needed to hear that. How can people follow you and support the work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, I'm at I am Jenny Sung. On TikTok, I'm at Free Range Pastor Jenny. And so would love to see you all there. And also, like, would love to hear about liberation in your own worlds. Like, I love creating content, but I love even more hearing about your stories,
Yeah,
because that's the stuff that I think changes the world.
I
And so
love it.
that's where to follow. You can Venmo me at Free Range Pastor Jenny if anything felt inspiring to you, or even just connect with me online. I do coaching, I do pastoral care counseling. And so just, I don't know, I'm just here to fill your cup and love you up. And also, yeah, I'm just grateful to be here.
Yeah, so I'll have all of that in the show notes for folks. to be able to follow you, if they want to bless you with financial gifts, or just be in contact with you through coaching and things of that nature. I really am just really grateful that you just took time out of your schedule. And for those who are listening right now at this recording, Pastor Jenny is actually in the Holy Land, which I just think is just the dopest thing. And so I'm not sure of the time difference, but I'm really grateful that you hung out with me for just a little bit and just talked liberation and just for being on the podcast. So thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, my joy. I can't wait to talk more.